So essentially on the spiritual path, we have periods of isolation. Then we also have these periods when we go about among people. I want to discuss the role of each of these, because sometimes there can be this misconception that the spiritual path is all about isolation. I believe this actually comes from just this idea of, like, for example, different monks and nuns living alone in the monastery for like many years, decades, and just for the rest of their lives, just devoting themselves to the work that they're doing. And while I'm not judging this at all, obviously, like, yeah, why would I? That certainly is not the path for everyone. And for when it comes to understanding whether or not that is the path for you, there's many ways to tune into this. You'll probably either feel the calling for that or not. For the vast majority of us, I would say, there's this balance of isolation and non-isolation. So essentially being by yourself versus being among people. And the role of isolation, and if we go back into this perspective of the monastery life for the monks and the nuns, and like if we could have like a gender neutral word for a monk or a nun, that would be awesome. If you can come up with that, drop it in the comments. Because that's something that I've been thinking about with my closest people. Anyway, the idea there with the isolation is to remove distractions, and it's sort of like a purification for your mind, for your mental levels. It's purification for a lot of things. It's just like a deep cleanse. Doing that allows you to see where you perhaps may rely on other people for certain things, coming back to your power in a certain way, because you are understanding that there are certain things that you don't really need to rely on for other people, and you don't necessarily need to cling to other people. It's also very good for cutting attachments. It's very good for cutting cords. It's also very good for cultivating your connection with Source. If you want some practical tools and deep insights into how to connect with pure Source consciousness and how to have a clear connection with Source, make sure you sign up to my newsletter. I will be sure to send you my free class all about that. The class will be amazing. You will not regret watching it. So do sign up right now if you want to know how to be in pure connection with Source. And that doesn't mean that you cannot do it while you're with other people or when you're living a social life, because spirit is present everywhere, really. It's present within each of us, and I think that's really what counts. Being present with the spirit does not depend on where you are, where you live, where you go, who you are with. Presence of spirit is within each and every one of us. I mean, there could be different beliefs around this, but it's just how I personally perceive things. When we understand that the spirit is present in each and every one of us, we can also start to understand that when we go about socializing, how perhaps spirit is expressing through them. We can see the diversity of spirit in action. And there's another aspect, okay? Because if we go into isolation and we develop our spiritual gifts, our spiritual talent, our spiritual wisdom, understanding, all that good stuff, raising our frequency or whatever, and again, that comes with the purging the density, releasing the baggage. So when we come from this isolation and we go into the world to socialize, to meet people, to meet the world essentially, that's when we're testing our energy field. We are taking our energy field on a test run. We're seeing just how strong our frequency is, and we're seeing how many lessons have we actually learned. Because when we then go about interacting with others, going into different circumstances, then we really understand where we really are at, where our consciousness is. Because if it so happens that after like a phase of isolation, you go out in the world and you notice that you're like really fragile, or if you're going into like this big waves of energy where it's like one moment you're like very high and then you're very low, this does speak about our ability to first of all stabilize, but also our ability to process energies, to understand, and how much we are perhaps absorbing from other people without even knowing it, perhaps how strong our frequency really is, how elevated our energy field really is. Because if our energy field starts to shrink after we have been outside interacting with people. Maybe somebody got like really mad at us or something, and we just like shrink. That kind of shows that perhaps we didn't cultivate our energy field strong enough, or that we needed to actually learn how to hold our frequency stronger. I guess it's pretty normal, especially for those of us that are very introverted, to get a little bit more drained by social interactions, and it just is part of it, and it can take energy. But there's a difference between just a normal tiredness. If you went for a long walk, or if you went to the gym and you feel a little bit tired after it, that's like normal. But it's a different thing if you go to the gym and then you feel like fucking exhausted after it and you don't want to do anything else for the rest of the day. That's different, right? So if we tend to feel extremely depleted after socializing and being out there in the world, that's when we need to know how to strengthen our energetic boundaries. And that it is a sign that perhaps we are still leaking energy and we're perhaps unable to control it. There's a place for isolation and non-isolation. When we go into isolation, we go to learn about ourselves and the spirit and all of that. We go to learn about what we are learning and understanding. We go to learn about energy, our energy, and we go to integrate, right? Integration, usually we can do it the best when we are alone, but there are also ways to integrate with others. So when we integrate, when we're socializing, that's going to be a different process. This could be perhaps integrating new people into our lives, new social connections, integrating a new job, a new level of abundance. So especially if you work in a service-based industry and you are integrating a new frequency in regards to your job, that does require social integration. There's one thing to keep in mind. Sometimes we believe that we are raising our frequency alone, like that just happens alone, always. Sometimes we can actually more effectively raise our frequency when we interact with other people, because that allows us to see different sides of things, that expands our awareness and consciousness. And soul connections is another one. When you meet your soul family, that almost immediately raises the frequency of both of you. It helps you both, first of all, again, clear any density from your energy fields, recognize where perhaps you have been distorted in your thinking, distorted in your frequency, and you get to understand things from another perspective, if, again, you are capable of doing that, because I know sometimes people are capable of doing that, but that's for perhaps another conversation. This really is the beauty of experiencing all of this, of experiencing these lifetimes. And I did speak about this a little bit in another video. There's like this whole series that basically, if you watch the whole series, all of it kind of feeds into one another, so it's going to just like provide different perspectives to look at things. So I will link these videos down below, this entire series. That is just all about starseeds, starseed connections, starseeds and human connections, basically. These are all just very big topics that I could probably speak forever and ever about. And I hope this perhaps helps you understand where maybe you have been over-isolating, because as we know, over-isolating can weaken our social abilities. With the 2020 events, when people were isolating and after they came back from it, sometimes people did experience weakening of their social skills as a result. And I know I did as well, even though I've always been a bit more of an introvert. Like it's weird that even as an introvert that could happen to me, but it can. When you're barely seeing anyone, you aren't having that many social interactions. Especially if you did experience things during that year that were a little bit heavy, I know I did, then that is going to make things a bit harder once you go back into the world to meet people. So I think it's good to remember like a good balance here. You might sometimes be in a state of isolation, maybe go on a retreat with yourself. There's going to be phases that you're going to be much more social and much more extroverted and much more engaged with the world. So there's going to be this fine balance between these two, a fine balance of understanding where time with yourself versus time with others is going to be most necessary. Just try to make sure that you keep that balance good. Take care of your energy regardless of what situation you're going into. And understand that actually, especially, if you have spent long times alone and then you go back into the world, going back into the world is a test of what you have achieved on a spiritual level. And it doesn't really matter where you live, doesn't really matter who you're with. I mean, there are exceptions to this rule, I think, because sometimes, especially if we have like really toxic dynamics, then obviously we don't want to deal with those. Like the best case scenario would be to cut them off completely, but sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes we'll just have to limit our time with those people. But the true test is really in how we manage our energy. That is always going to be tested by our interactions with others. If you are in a phase or in a place in your consciousness, in a place on your spiritual path, on your journey, where you need to heal in peace, you need some more time to allow for some more subtle, sort of pristine energies to settle in your field, and so these more intricate frequencies, and where you need to integrate more by yourself, and where perhaps other people's involvement would not be that good, then yes, take time for isolation. Take time off the phone. This is what I need to remind people of every time. Time off your phone, because your phone also can transmit energies to you from other people. Just that's a good reminder for this, especially for this digital age, where more and more people, have to admit, even me, spend more time on our phones. And sometimes that is a sign that you are interacting with a lot of people, and for that very reason you might need to also take some more time for yourself. This is just all about balance and knowing where you're at on your path in this time, which timeline you are exploring and experiencing. So with that said, if you have any more questions, leave them in the comments below and let me know your perspective. I'd be happy to hear it. If you haven't yet watched the rest of this series that has to do with Starseeds and human connections, explore the playlist down in the description box below. I also have a free class available for my newsletter subscribers that is all about how to improve and enhance your connection with Source, so check that out. I will be back here very soon. See you later. Stay inspiring.